So I decided to make this video today. I have a migraine. I'm not high or anything. It's not why I'm wearing the glasses, and it's not a disguise. It's just I have a migraine. But I figured I can't rotate my phone. It's ridiculous. Figured I should make a video and explain some things to the best of my ability and comfort level. Right now it's set just to friends, and if it comes out alright, I'll make it public, I suppose. So where we're at now in history on what we call Earth, or they used to call Key, or Tesla called a realm, is we're in the age of we're in the Iron Age again. We heard of the Iron Age. The Aztecs talked about it, some of the old cultures, and that's where the power brokers and the rulers of Earth kind of they start feuding with each other. And traditionally, we think of the Iron Age as people rebelling against the people that are in power, but that always happens and never happens at the same time. It's like everything else, it's consent, it's manufactured. Consent is manufactured. The opposition is manufactured, and they're all control systems. And I think part of the reason why we get to this point in the Iron Age is that people are so controlled. It's not even a challenge for the rulers of the world to control people. They control each other. We think of it, we talk about the sheepdog, like the sheepdog is your buddy, it protects the sheep. But if you ever, the sheepdog will, fight wolves, but that's not what it does. It barks at the sheep. It controls the sheep for the shepherd. That's why the sheepdogs are there. If the sheepdogs bark too much, then the shepherd gets a big stick to take care of the wolf. So just everything's just so much under control now. And politically, what we're seeing is we're seeing that play out. We're seeing the two sides, the winning side and the losing side, or the side that was losing and is now winning. The globalist agenda versus the nationalist agenda, and just all these opposing things. I mean, you could find 5 different things that are opposites or put against each other that revolve around our politics and our country, and what divides us from other countries and cultures, and they all line up pretty well right now. It's just diametric opposition on one side and the other, and there's really not too much further to go from there. The Iron Age can't go on forever. It can, but that wouldn't be fun for anyone. So what eventually happens is wars. And no matter how much anyone prepares for those types of conflicts, they never go according to plan. I think that's like the nature of these conflicts. Once, you know, the way I look at it is you'll have wars break out. There'll be some kind of a reason, but then there'll be anti-war protesters that won't like it, and they'll contribute to, you know, division within the country. The patriots and the Go America versus the F America and the other guys. And if that goes on long enough, then the sheepdogs will start barking, and then the bodies start piling up. You don't dispose of them fast enough, and you have disease, you know, and the chaos blocks the road, so you have famine. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, this, sometimes just putting an idea into the public can prevent it. I don't know that in some circumstances that's even a possibility. Theoretically, after the Iron Age, you have the Golden Age, a time of prosperity and peace and happiness, and new technologies and incentives to basically get over the horribleness of the Iron Age. And we have these cycles in our own lives as well. We have the Iron Age and the Golden Age, and there's 2 more, but they don't even matter to me right now because I know where we are. We're in the Iron Age, and we're in the Golden Age also. There's that overlap, but as the Iron Age and the conflict gets worse, the Golden Age begins. But it's not until everyone's completely, like after World War II, we had the baby boom, right? People came home, everyone was happy. Oh, thank God. That's over with. Now we can move on and be happy, right? Because somehow they didn't have enough of strife during World War I, which I don't know that much about. I just know it was a lot bigger than they tell us in school. Like, a lot more countries were involved, and whatever. So what does this have to do? Like, why am I making a video about this? Well, for the people that see my posts with any regularity and have known me on here for a few years, you know that the esoteric, or if you want to be cryptic and alienate people, you could call it the occult, but that just means hidden. You know, ocul is eye, so it's a stupid word. And extraterrestrials and angels and UFOs and getting abducted, yeah, these are things I do. That's what I do. That's what I'm into, and it's not like I even chose to pursue this path personally. It just became my life. But you had so as far as like the unveiling and the apocalypse and that aspect of the control system, or the lack of the control system, before people can learn the truth or learn other truths, they need to realize that what the shortcomings are with the truth that they already have. You understand? What does this thing say here? I never used this before. Bring them on camera. That's so I was raised as a Christian. I went to church First Congregational Church in Hampton, founded in 1638. And I was, you know, I was like I am now, you know, chaotic and dark and strange, but in some ways, a lot of energy at times, and it, you know, I probably didn't seem like the typical Ned Flanders good neighbor Christian, because I'm not, and increasingly I'm not, because there's less and less connection. Tried to go in the woods today with my daughter, and they had no trespassing signs at the end of their yard where the woods began, so we had to go like half a mile around, you know. And I just thought, this is it's a dead end road. You can't even get to the woods. So, you know, but whatever, you know, that's cool. But anyway, so around 1993, I was 16 years old, and my mom was working over at Lincoln Ackerman School, and Dan Brown, the author of DaVinci Code and all his other books. You should read Digital Fortress. And you should read The Lost Symbol, since none of you have. I know none of you have, because I know things. But you know what some of them are about, because they have movies and stuff. But so I met him in 93. He and my mom became best friends, and I was a fan of his music. He had a good album. He was a good musician, much better musician than people would guess. A lot of soul for a, you know, seemingly moderately wealthy stranger who showed up in my life out of nowhere. I used to listen to the song a lot. And one of the lyrics was, "Angels and demons call my name, they speak to me at night." And just about the struggle between the light and the dark, which is the Iron Age and the Golden Age. And I didn't like him. I didn't like him right off the bat. Of course, I don't like people off the bat very often. The people, like my best friend, he passed in 2000, but he lived with me in high school, and when I first met him, my first thought was to stab him with a fork. And I've never had that thought about anyone before, but he took my sister's seat at Friendly's, so of course, you know, I was the tough guy, so I was expected I would do nothing or something, but I don't know. He was an interesting guy. My point is, oftentimes the person that you don't like the most will be your closest friend in some way. Especially for guys, maybe for girls too, I don't know. I happen to be a guy. So I went to college, and it was a disaster, and came back, and that was around 96 maybe, and he'd been writing books, and I proofread Deception Point, was it? Yeah, I think it was Deception Point for him. Did I recommend that book? I meant Digital Fortress and The Lost Symbol. I stayed up all night, proofread the book for him, and then the next day I showed him my one suggestion, and he was just like, I have an editor for that. And I was like all excited because I could be useful for a half a second. But the things he wrote about and the music most likely contributed to my interests, and was one of the factors which led me to not leave Christianity, but I prayed, I asked God, I said, God, just heard this ridiculous argument at church today about gays and going to hell, and it was, not something that was taught at my church by any means, but this Mormon guy and some other guy were arguing about it after church, and I was like, this is so stupid. So I asked God permission to look for religion elsewhere, and God said, yeah. Hey, how's it going, Jen and Bring? Hey, Arjan, is that how you say that, Arjan? And I prayed about it, and if you're gonna pray to God for permission to go find God, you are preparing yourself for something that you don't know you're preparing yourself for, something that'll take you to it'll take you places that don't exist in what your understanding, my understanding was before I entered this whole world. I didn't know these things were real. And at any rate, so I walked out of church like the next Sunday, and I looked to the left. It was north, east, south, west in the sky, and there were two clouds in the shape of Tutankhamun at the bust, the head and the beard and the snakes on the forehead or whatever, and his father, and they weren't like loose clouds like fluffing around, and I'm like, that looks like, it's like my profile picture, that chick in the sky, that's my ET angel girlfriend. When did you start seeing the world and the energies? Yeah. Alright, so I guess I'll go there. When I was about 6 years old, maybe 7 or 8, we were outside my dad's work. He had a business in Hampton, New Hampshire, and there was this bluebird, and it was just sitting there, and I was like 20 feet away from it, and for some reason I knew I could go pick that bird up. Like, I didn't even think to myself, I can pick that bird up. I just walked over to this bluebird and picked it up. My mom was like, oh my God, that thing's probably got disease. I don't know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I knew I could pick it up, so I knew it was going to let me. It wasn't even a question. I was going to go pick up that bluebird. So that was probably one of the first unusual things. More unusual is that when I was young, I would sit there and have two fleets of spaceships that would fight each other, and I didn't imagine seeing them. I straight up would have one have its base over there and one over there, and they would just come out of it, and they'd be shooting lasers at each other, and it seemed, it was cool that I could see them, it was really strange, actually, and I didn't think anything of it at all. So I would say that was some of my first experiences. But I got really into researching all aspects of the paranormal. Not so much into UFOs and stuff at the time, and ghosts and all that. But at any rate, so I invited Dan downstairs. If you look at the cover of the book Origin, you see that spiral staircase, and that's where I invited him. I invited him down into the cave. That's what the room was called, where I did magic and a lot of praying and a lot of magic. That's where I had my little altar set up Kurt Cobain had written in his the note that was called his suicide note, the letter he had written, Francis and Courtney, I'll be at your altar. Now, I didn't know this till years later, I assume, but I held a seance and asked him to come, and he did. There was a door in the cave to the back door, and there was a window in it, and I turned around and he was standing in the door just like this. It was like this. It was like, hold on, my phone's telling me I can't rotate it. He's like this, except he looks like him, so I can't do it quite as well as he. His face was a little more elasticy than mine. And it's kind of the nature of these things, but I was paralyzed. I was totally paralyzed, and I'm just staring. I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. And the weird thing is, I don't remember how that ended. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was my first meeting with an angel. You know, like, that was, I don't know if I have no idea how that ended. I was looking at him and paralyzed. Anyway, he became a good friend of mine, Kurt. We would hang out a lot of times. You could say it was dreams, but they weren't dreams. We'd go explore like empty cities together, and one time he played guitar and sang for me, and he showed me 2 different ways to sing and play a song, and it was really cool. Just the blackbird, nice. So I invited Dan down, and I taught him about the, you know, it made sense to me that Mary wasn't a hooker, you know, a prostitute or whatever. Like, it didn't make sense to me, because first of all, his mother's name is Mary, and then Mary of Magdala was his woman, and to me it was showing duality, which again goes back to the Iron Age, right? That duality. So of course you had to show the woman as a, you know, a hooker. But I said, you know, they were married, or they were in a relationship. She wasn't a hooker. That was BS. And he had already written Angels and Demons, so and the Catholic Church, you know, has 5,000 miles or 500 miles of, they have a lot of documentation and information and relics and everything, and gold. They have everything, and they have it all underground. So it made sense to me to blame them. And he managed to do so. He figured out, you know, he learned on his own about Opus Dei, and blamed them all on his own. And it was a couple of years after that, after the book came out and he got famous, that I saw him at the Stratham Fair. My CDs were for sale there, and I asked him to you know, told him we were selling CDs or whatever, and he said, "Oh, I'll sponsor your band." So I got all excited because he had been a musician himself. So when he says, "Oh, I'm going to iron confines evil, gold feeds from it," that's cool. That's cool. It made sense to me that if he says he's going to sponsor my band, that he's going to sponsor my band. Because he had just, before he moved back here in '93 and became part of my life, he was out in Hollywood, living out there as a musician. And so for about 5 minutes, and he was wearing the same disguise when I saw him at the fair that day. The hat and sunglasses. It's a great disguise, huh? I knew it was him instantly, just from his energy, you know. But as I walked away to the car, about a minute later, I realized that maybe he realized it at the same time, or maybe I just figured out that he didn't mean it. At any rate, he was still my mom's best friend, so I wrote him a nice long letter. You know how I write. It was probably worse because my handwriting's atrocious. And he was gonna. So he got the letter that night, and he wrote me an email like the next day or 2 days later. But he ended the friendship with my mom around the same time because I asked for credit or compensation. Now, when I say credit or compensation, I mean, you know what I mean, money, or hey, this guy John, this dude knows some stuff. You should listen to him, right? Because that's what happens when a celebrity endorses you. You get like credit, you know. It's like celebrity worship. Yeah, it's funny, and I make fun of it a lot, but I know it's true, you know. And if Dan was like, well, folks, it's true. But he did. In the Lost Symbol, he used my high school nickname, one of them, which is in my yearbook from '95, which was Malachi. And it was his friend's son who initiated him into the mysteries. Because you've seen my magic square, I assume it's featured on my page. So anyway, and I said, and it was supposed to come out. That's the funny thing, is his last book was supposed to come out on September 27th, which is my birthday, which I think was interesting. But when I called out that was my birthday, he changed it to October 3rd. We kind of have a feud going. See, he's my brother from another life. Like, we are Illuminati. We're very, very old souls. But yeah, so who showed up on my birthday and said was, well, I'm not going to tell you her name, but yeah, the switch behind the ear, the kid said he's from Mars. The switch behind the ear, if you look at a rail, those old, what are those things called? Those stone monuments on Easter Island. Yeah, Easter Island. That's behind the ear. It's a Bluetooth. So they had the cell phone technology and all that back then. So, do you see what I'm saying? So he said he's lost all his memory, which is possible, by the way, that kid. Or he just was tired of people. Either way. Yeah, the technology is the Bluetooth. It's the communication. And that's what we have now. So, and that's what, if you look at my angel in my profile picture, you'll see coming around to her mouth. First, I thought it was a rebreather, so she could breathe in her atmosphere, but no, it's a communicator. So she has the communicator, and she has the suit, and then she has like the tubes, which are probably the rebreathing system, and in her hands she has a phone, which is held sideways, and it has a triangle on it, as in the pyramid, maybe. I still have a lot of questions about that myself. But as far as Easter Island, as far as the Sphinx, that's probably what he meant. I don't know. I mean, if you want to get a ladder and climb up on the Sphinx, I'm more interested in what's beneath a lot of things. Beneath the ground. There's a lot of things underneath the ground. There's cities underneath the ground. And these cities connect. And these cities have technology that's so space age and amazing that Tesla invented it 70 years ago. And there's probably technology from before the last apocalypse, like 40,000, either 40,000 or 26,000 years ago, 26,000, 30 years ago, whatever. Yeah, so answering these to Hollow Earth, yeah, yeah. Like I just said, there's a lot of. Here's the thing: there's not one world. We don't live in one world. Do you understand? This is not one world. Does that make sense? This isn't one world. This isn't a 3D world. If it was a 3D world, then it's just not. There's an incalculable number of universes and worlds, not just in this world, but that intersect at any point. So, is the Earth flat? Yes. Is it round? Yes. Is it a globe? Yes. Is it hollow? Yes. You know, does it have a core? You know, like a core in the center? Oh, you mean like a sun? Does it have a sun in the center? Or wait, or are we in the center of the Earth? Are we in the center of the Earth now, in a cave? You ever think about that? It makes sense. It makes as much sense as anything else. Alright, you distracted me with a question, so if you got a question, ask it. And scrolling through. What's up, Frank? When did I start seeing the world? Alright, hold on. How many levels did Dante say there were? Didn't he say 7 hells? He said 7 hells, didn't he? What? I don't know, Stephen Gibbs. But yeah, there's yeah, if you want to start simple without being like, oh, there's a million answers to everything, you can say there's 7 hells and 7 heavens, I suppose. But hell, you know, one of the things that Dan teaches you pretty well, he is a smart guy, he teaches you pretty well, is that the hell really was an invention to control people. Before that, I mean, way back, there wasn't really any heavens. There was just, I gotta let my dog out, so hold on here. There wasn't really any hells. There was just the underworld. You understand? There was the underworld, or the Egyptians called it the land of the dead. And that was what you had. So the gods were the gods of the underworld. And then, because we needed to get rid of all, here's the original, my friend who wishes to remain nameless, because I'm obviously not a controversial figure at all, but he did this one too. He was a good friend of mine. This path that I'm on has cost me a lot of people, a lot of good people that I like. He did that painting. He made this for me. And there's Kurt. Gotta say hey to Kurt, because you know he's watching. So yeah, there's underworlds, and there's sideways worlds. You know, in Stranger Things they had the upside down world. I told you guys in a couple of posts, which probably seemed a little bit unbelievable, that, well, first of all, when I said that there would be disclosure, ET disclosure by the end of the year 2017, I decided to make it happen. And in order to make it happen, like, you guys got to go back and look at the Nimitz UFO sighting. Because that Nimitz UFO was here at my house. The one that was on the news on December 20th through the 23rd. I photographed that UFO on December 20th, and it was on the news, or October 20th, and it was on the news 2 months later, but the first time it was posted anywhere was on October 23, which is 3 days later. And one day, the day that I was in the ER with a fever, radiation burns, and stabbed in the gut like 5 times. So I don't want to make too many promises about what's going to happen. Alright, hold on. Yeah, there was 7. I'm not clicking on a link while I'm on this thing. So basically what I kind of wanted to make this for was to explain who I am. You know, that Thoth magic square is what I taught Dan with, and I taught him about reincarnation and how some secret societies use reincarnation. I didn't know at the time that I was part of these secret societies or whatnot, but yeah, I'm absolutely one of the ancients, and as I mentioned, so is Dan, and so are some of your world leaders. Most of them. I don't know about most, I don't know all of them, but the ones that I hear about on any regular basis, these are old souls. And I don't just mean like old bloodlines. I mean, they're actually, like, you guys want a disclosure, right? Well, everyone's kind of here now. Some of them are on Earth. Some of them are floating in the sky. Some of them are in the, you know, the hollow Earth or inside the Earth. And some of them are nearer and farther. And there is a veil beyond which we're not supposed to be able to see. Like, I can see that this has played out before. You know, we know from history, we know that the Vedas, they had this technology to travel. They had the pagodas, they had the flying vehicles that went around the earth. And that's kind of what's interesting too, is that after they destroyed themselves with the technology that's also in the Vedas, and that might have even been two destruction cycles ago. This is the 6th, I believe. Some people say the 5th, but I think it's the 6th time we've destroyed ourselves with technology. And I really think, and I don't know, I don't want to think about that far back in detail, but like I said, it's because people are so controlled now, you know, and the masters of the earth who have been running the earth for X amount of time, they had their marching orders to keep things organized and to make progress. Not marching orders, but you know, to take care of things until we came back. And how have they done? In some ways they've done well, I suppose. In some ways, I don't know. I think that there were some errors made from the very beginning of creating this earth, and I don't know why. I think that there were certain groups that were just not going to get along, and then to make that worse, they like created belief systems so people could fight with each other even more, and it's just atrocious, you know. Is this going forwards or backwards? I never used this before. Anyway, at least my headache went away. So there's many different beings. Oh yeah, but so the last time it was destroyed, or maybe even every time it's been destroyed, there are some people who find the right caves, or the right cave systems, or they build the right bunkers where they can live and survive the horrible devastation of their own creation, or of the creation of Earth. Earth creates its own destruction, is what I'm saying. The people, mainly. How much the weather is controlled by humans, or whether it's uncontrollable. These are factors that play in. But there's just too many variables. There's really like too many variables. Like you think you're breathing air, but to someone of a different density, you're living in water. You understand that? This is like we're living in an ocean. You understand? I don't know how high up we can get our technology to go, and I don't know how much the Earth's magnetism changing is affecting our technology. NASA says we can't go back to the moon, and they lost the original footage of the landing. At least that's what one of their employees said. So when people say it's a prison planet, I just think, alright, if that's how you feel about it, then why do you call the rulers of the world elites? Why don't you call them a-holes? I would call them a-holes. You want to know why you call them elites? Because you're told to. You're told to call them elites. Who do you think came up with the term elites? Do you think it was you? It wasn't you. You understand? Like, you think what you're told to think. That's the problem. It became too easy for them to control you. And nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted that. And it's just getting worse. And I don't want to switch to politics for a minute. And I'm going to be slightly delicate here. Like, the Republican Party was once the party of the rich. And there were certain elements of the intelligence community that were like, they probably, hopefully, had good intentions to begin with also. But they realized that they needed to be the counterbalance for the Democrats, essentially. Now, we know that the history of the two parties, and if we line that up with how they're going today, you could say that they've never really changed. The only thing that really changed was America itself. So the intelligence people did take the side of the Democrats to balance out the Republican money. And they're so good at these things, I don't know how they screwed this up. You know? I mean, I wanted Trump to win, but I didn't know he'd win until an hour before. And I've guessed every election correctly since Clinton. Before that, I didn't even know what month it was, let alone who was president. It just didn't matter to me. And it really doesn't matter all that much anyway. Not that much changes from election to election, but you have 4 years to get ready to do your one vote. You got 4 years to have very strong feelings about your candidate and argue with each other about politics. And then you get one vote. You see, this is why the earth gets destroyed. This is why it happens. It's not because people are bad. It's not a punishment. But right now, there are crafts around the earth. There are crafts within the earth. There are angels. There are many different types of beings. And I've been on some of these ships, and they're around. And they've always been around. And if you saw in the news, they just did a scan of the Mayan area, the Yucatan Peninsula, the Mayans, and they found that the structures there were like 60,000 houses and these great irrigation, probably like the Roman aqueducts, and it's phenomenal what they had there. It's like Angkor Wat or Egypt, if they'd ever let you know the truth about Egypt. They're not going to let you know the truth about Egypt. There's like an entire not ruling family, but period in Egypt history, which is literally just like removed. And David Icke would say that's when whites and reptilians showed up from Mars. Or other, Zachariah Stitchin, who was a classmate with George Soros, would say that's when the Anunnaki showed up, those who from heaven to earth came. But they're here now, like my profile picture is proof of that. My story of who I am and how I fit into these books and helping to change the paradigm and bring you disclosure. Everyone has a part to play in their own life. But if you want to be a player on the world stage, that's something that you've worked towards over like many lifetimes. When I say many lifetimes, I'm talking like 400,000 years, 400 million years. And it's really atrocious. I mean, I died in 2002. I got abducted in a flash of light in 2003. My life went to crap. I tried going to school and doing good, and had a mentor teaching me all the most advanced manual therapy, technology and techniques and knowledge. And what did he end up teaching me? About consciousness and ETs. So even when I try to be normal, I was doing good. I was going to school. I quit the music business because that's horrible. It's a horrible, hellish place. Nobody should ever go. And I ended up studying consciousness and having more UFO, more interaction with extraterrestrials. That was in 2008, late 2008. And that was 2008. So the DaVinci Code came out in 2003. 2003? I think 2003. And by that point, I'd already died and been resuscitated, apparently, which was totally atrocious. Fucking hellish. The point is, somebody asked me, got an argument with someone briefly. They wanted to know if I wanted to be rich and famous. And people ask me that a lot. To which now I would just reply, do you want to be poor? Do you like being poor? But then I kind of figured it out that it's nice to have somebody who knows what's going on some levels that doesn't... David, do you want to come on? Or Larry? I don't even know if you guys are on here. I don't care. If you do, say so. Yeah, you can watch it later or scroll through. I had no agenda in making this video. I did. I think I've told you what I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you about God. Alright, God. So, last night I was praying and dealing with various ET that were here last night after my post that got their attention. And often I talk to the angel in my profile picture, and I was like thinking, knowing what I do about, the 7 hells or the 7 heavens and the hierarchy, that pyramid, the higher and higher you go, the less and less there are. And I was like, is that really, like, do I have any right to even be, like, talking to God? Like, directly? Because this is like 6.8 trillion people on Earth. So the way I looked at it is that there's filters. Like the hierarchies of angels are filters. I love that no one's watching at this point. Makes me feel warm and fuzzy. So I can just talk to myself without having to read stuff, take my sunglasses off. But I was thinking, geez, God's like, I'm not talking about gods of the earth. I'm not talking about gods of the 3D world. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the infinite original intelligence of the universe. Some blue octopus far away in space or spider that just made so many worlds, and now it's like, my God, why did I make so many beings? They all are trying to talk to me. It's like the same thing with being a celebrity. You have filters between you and the population. So anyway, I kind of had a visual of the layers of angels between me and God, and I was like, no. I was like, that's cool. I don't need to try to talk to God right now. He's busy. But that doesn't mean that he can't delegate authority. You know? But really, the important thing is that people realize that the world is changing. People are like, oh, there's 2 suns, there's 5 planets, there's 7 planets in our sky. And I'm like, oh, those could be ships. Well, what's Earth? Earth could be a giant flying saucer that at the push of a button becomes round. Or is surrounded by ice because space is cold and that's why it's flat. NASA says the entire galaxy is flat. So if the galaxy is flat, but then again, that's just how the light is seen. And you know what? I don't believe that anyway. Well, I can believe it. I can believe it's 10 different things at once because it doesn't matter to me at all. It's like Flight of the Navigator. You seen that movie? The AI that is that ship that the kid is driving, it's flying. When it talks, it changes shape, like the Tetragrammatron. And cymatics. And using the logos, the word to create. It's pretty deep. And that was back in the 80s too, that movie. And you don't hear about it anymore. Some things just have so much truth that it shows up and then it disappears, you know? Like Inception. That they can put an idea in your mind, like calling them elite, and you think it's like an insult. You know, my name on Facebook is Elite Manual Therapy because I'm damn good at it. You understand? And so if you don't like him and you want to call him elite, then you're a slave. You just, you know, if you guys want to stop being slaves and you want to start being co-creators, you want to become masters. You don't want to be an architect. You don't want to be an architect right now, but if you want to be a master, you want to be a creator on earth, then start thinking about, like, don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about what other people think. Seriously. Like, look at me. I'm far from a role model. But I have had a tremendous impact on this earth. Just in the last 14 years. I'm in, 2 movies? Characters based on me. 200 million books. You know? And I was able to, like, have disclosure happen for you. I mean, and I'm just a dude. But I'm a dude who does not care. I care so much about you that I don't care. Like, you don't want to like me? Then don't. If they don't want to like me, then I do not care. I do not answer to them. I answer to God. You understand? And I do my best to help people also when I can in my limited capacity. Hey, Jen. Facets of God. Yeah, God. Yeah, like that's a good topic. The many aspects of God. What are they called? Pantheons, like where they'd have like Saturn and Jupiter and those pantheons. The different aspects. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you can become a creator. Like, you can change the world. Like, if you want to prevent the world from being destroyed, you can. And there's not very many ways to do it. There's really not. You know? Like, I'm a really old bastard of a soul, which is why I am how I am and why I do this crap I do, which is so surreal to me that I question everything. Everything. Why me? Why me? Why me? Whining. I've just been whining for decades to myself and to God. Why me, God? Why? Why did I teach Dan? And why am I in that book? Why did they stab me in my guts when they abducted me? What did they mean when they were talking and stabbing me in the guts? But you said you wanted disclosure, right? You said you wanted disclosure, and then there it was. And then, oh, nobody wanted disclosure, because there it was. Oh, and I ate myself. I was like, before I figured it out, I was like, dude, that could be like a video game, you know? Like, that's, you know, it's not what you want. What you want is to see my profile picture on the news and people be like, oh my God, there's a freaking angel. There's a freaking angel there. Yeah, the Norse gods. See, and that's another thing too. As far as messengers from God, like God sends messengers, right? God sends all kinds of messengers. I'm sure that you've all been used as messengers. Some of you have even been messengers to me, but because I have so little faith in humanity, if someone acts as a messenger, I have to consider the possibility that they're a spy or AI. Because I've lost a lot of faith in humanity. And I'm working on getting it back and telling you guys the truth, which some people would say, that's your truth. No, it's the truth. There's such thing as truth. You know, there's also such things as there's not one truth. There's many truths. You're not you. You know. Oh yeah, so the Mayans, their whole civilization is buried. Or except for the pyramids, but a lot of it is underground. Do you know how much dust falls on Earth every year? It's like 200 billion tons of space dust. And you guys are like, chemtrails. Yeah, there are chemtrails. You're right. Feel free to talk and I'll get back, I'll go back and forth between my rambling and addressing what you're saying. But there's 200 billion tons of space dust that fall on the Earth every year. And what do you think's in that? The Aztecs said, was it the Aztecs? The blue star of the Hopi. The Hopi. The Hopis said there was going to be a blue star, which I initially equated with Nibiru and foolishly expected to arrive in 2012. But Linda Villangoza, you're here, I think. Linda actually has a picture I took of the sun, and behind it is this giant blue planet. And that's kind of cool. So maybe that's the blue star of the Hopi. And the way that works is there's certain elements which that the ancients, I say the ancients, and then I'll say like that I'm one of them, so it's like a catch-22, but that they would eat what was called mufkaf, which was like, it was like a ice cream cone, and in it would be this element that would allow for you to ingest it. And by ingesting it, you were able to have basically some of the experiences that I have. You can astral travel in your balance the two sides of your brain, strengthen your corpus callosum. David Icke says that we're stuck a lot in our left brain, or that they put you in the left brain by having you memorize crap and not use your creative side of your mind. But it's that bridge. There's a bridge between the two sides of your mind, which is the corpus callosum. It's a nerve bundle of fibers that runs between the two sides of your brain. And people who are lefty have a stronger corpus callosum. And the reason for that is everything in the world is made for righties. It's all made for righties. So they have to work they have to work harder and learn things opposite of people who are right-handed. So it's more difficult for them. So they adapt and become stronger. You understand? So I don't want to pretend that I don't speak for the entire world. But these pantheons exist, and the different creation stories exist. And in some ways, I'm kind of like a racial avatar, because a lot of my... Oh, my cats are gonna eat each other. Giants, yeah, they were giants back in I mean, they were huge giants. I mean, I got a picture I post of this giant holding these huge chains and out in front of my house, and he was... a dude must have been a half a mile tall, maybe taller. He could have been taller. He could have been a mile tall. I'll find that picture and post it. But the barometric pressure is what changed. And that I actually saw a video back when I was in that mentorship studying massage, who's got me turned back on to ET, and they showed up again. That one of the videos that I watched there was about fish and barometric pressure. And when the barometric pressure is higher, things are smaller. And they actually increased, or maybe they're bigger. Either way, they put the fish in a tank, and then they increased the amount... What substance did I say? The barometric pressure. Barometric. Basically the density of... Yeah, it's funny, people talk about gravity. They're like, gravity! And I'm like, gravity is a word. It's describing something. It's not really all that scientific, you know. It just means things fall. But if you're in the ocean and you sink to the bottom and you don't swim back up, you fall to the bottom. And that's because of density and not because of gravity. Gravity is... It's just a stupid word. Forget about the shape of the earth. I don't even want to get into that. I already did. It's everything. It's flat, it's round, it's tetrahedron, double torus, you know, and it's a speck, you know, on your fingernail. But the barometric pressure, so the higher the pressure is, the taller things will be. That's why the trees used to be so huge. I mean, we have trees that were like ginormous. They were as big as mountains, basically. You guys have seen that, right? They're fossilized. You seen the fossilized trees? They're huge. They literally look like mountain ranges. So, yeah, people were giant too. But as time went on, the barometric pressure changed, and then things got smaller. Or let's say at first, let's say it was Adam and Eve. Let's just say, for example, Adam and Eve. You got two people on Earth. They're going to be big. Why not? Especially if the barometric pressure is what I'm saying it is, which it is. And you can look it up. If you're diligent, you might even find the video of the lobster tank where they changed the pressure and the things got huge. But if you have the entire earth and you're tall and everything is tall, and then there's twice as many people and twice as many people, it makes sense that you're going to cut down trees. They're not going to grow back as fast. If we left our trees alone, we planted them further apart and left them alone for like 500,000 years, maybe they'd be as big as a mountain. We won't know, because if they are doing that, then they wouldn't tell you. Or maybe those trees went extinct when we destroyed the earth the last 5 times. So giants still... And that's all I have to say, because my phone's ringing. Yes, they still live. They live, they're around, and some of us could actually be giants. Matter of fact, we could all be giants. It's really, just remember, what you see and what you believe, that's what matters. You know, you believe me because I'm not lying to you. That's why you believe me. You understand? When I talk about my experiences and those things, that's, you know, it's good, you know, took time. But it's what you believe and why you believe it that matters. Don't believe it because other people say to. Think about things. Form your own opinions. Become a master. Become a master of your life. Find things that are worth raising awareness of. Personally, this is one thing that I have asked, and I'll probably ask again, even though I don't know why I care, other than it's something true, which is coming from someone who's not going to lie to you, and that is the disclosure of ET. My experience is the NIM, and I'm not lying to you. So I did like 8 posts about that and some of these other things, and I'll do more videos, but I gotta go take that call. And thanks for tolerating me. Different species of trees. Yeah, there were different species of trees, you're right. Yeah, so look up barometric pressure, and be good, and I'll talk to you soon.